The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Welcome to Planting Seeds, Philanthropy in Saskatchewan, a show where we aim to connect you to the community impact being made by donors and charities across the prairies. I'm your host, Victor Roman, with the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm joined today with Steve Compton from YMCA of Regina. He's the CEO there, and he's joining us here today to tell us a bit about how they are building healthier communities with the YMCA. So thanks a lot for joining me, Steve. Could you let our audience know a bit more about maybe you, your role at the YMCA, and what the organization does?
Yeah, thank you very much, Victor. I've been with YMCA, it'll be just about 5 years this summer. And, prior to that, I'd worked in the charitable sector with Regina Food Bank. And I was approached by the YMCA about an opportunity to come, be part of the team. And it was really resonated with me because one thing I think that the YMCA does is that you're working on problems before they become symptoms. And in the sense that you're youth development, working with people to be their best and healthiest self, and healthiest in multiple dimensions. Spirit, mind, and body, as that's the YMCA tag nationally. And it's really brought it that I think people identify with our YMCA in how you connected with it, whether you started with swimming lessons, whether you started as a child or a parent of a child in childcare, or through our community programs and youth development. There's lots of different touch points, and so people know us in many different ways in the community.
There's so many things you can talk about with the YMCA. It's almost hard to figure out what to focus on. And even as you just said that, I was thinking about my own personal experience, and I became a member at the YMCA in 2006, I want to say. I actually had a job. Actually, John Bailey, who's with the food bank, I remember he hired me to work when I was in university for the before and after school programs that were run. Kind of fast forward years later, and being involved in so many ways. Me and my wife spent time there with Sally Elliott when she was doing her prenatal. There's so many ways that organization can touch someone's life at all different stages of it. It's really incredible. And on that note, I don't even know where you start, but could you give our audience a bit of a view of what kind of programming does exist at the Y? How diverse the programming is? Yeah,
there's a lot of different programming for people that choose to become a member of the Y, or you might be supported through the Y through our assisted membership program. There's a lot of different avenues. So, on the health, fitness, and aquatic side, I think one thing you talk to a lot of people, they'll say, well, I took my first swim lessons there. I was on the pool deck, and I grew up around the pool, and aquatics, people that have worked out at our facilities, and certainly that changed during the COVID periods, but we're really happy to say that, people are coming back and choosing our facility to work out, because I think what's unique about the Y in that sense is that it's for everybody. It's for all ages, all socioeconomic statuses, all backgrounds. And people can feel comfortable and safe within that space as well too. And you mentioned Sally Elliott. Just step back just for a second. I haven't met too many people that don't have some connection to Sally Elliott. And I had the chance to work with her for a couple of years before her passing. But her legacy continues. And we've recently restarted the perinatal and prenatal mom and me programs. In honor of her in that sense. So there's certainly that way to become involved. And being the largest childcare provider in Regina and the province, the YMCA, certainly touched many, many families through childcare. And you mentioned before and after school care. We're very busy with that in Regina and Moose Jaw. And, from a community program, and I think the one thing I always like to reinforce is as a charity. As a charity in the city, our charitable purpose really centers around supporting youth, helping youth bridge difficult situations to become fully inclusive and included in the community through a variety of different programs, through leadership programs, mentorship, school adherence, and the list goes on and on. And there's things like a lot of folks have gone through Home Alone and babysitting prep, and things that you might not know, because what I found when I arrived at the Y is that people would resonate with the way that they connected. So they might know us for the gym and fitness. Yeah. They might know us for childcare, and others might know us for the charitable outcome. And what the story we like to get out is yes, you're right. It's all those things.
The gym and fitness, I think, for a lot of people is almost like where it starts. Like you mentioned, the aquatics. It's either where you had your first swimming lesson, or you took your kids for their first swimming lessons. For a lot of people in our community, and this is actually just a question I have in general, because I know one of the big changes that happened in recent years, and since you came on, and I know the pandemic happening probably had a big impact on this, was that downtown location. And with the closure of that, I'm just curious how you guys have adapted and made sure that your other locations are still capturing really the heart that core used to have.
Yeah, that was without a doubt the most difficult thing I've ever done in my professional career. That was the toughest decision that I would suggest that the Y ever faced in some ways. And we had at that point in time during COVID, we had 3 fitness facilities open. One was a leased facility in the east. There's downtown property, the iconic downtown property, and our northwest, which is is bustling today. And we found that what COVID did to communities with its endurance. Yeah, I think if COVID would have been a few weeks or a couple of months or something along that line, that a lot of things would have snapped back to normalcy. But when people didn't necessarily return to workplaces downtown, they didn't, vaccines weren't out yet. There's a lot of different factors, and all of them were justified. We just found that we couldn't sustain all 3 of them, and we were seeing that our Northwest facility was tucked in the neighborhood. It was, very much family composition where it could meet everybody where they needed, where it was needed. And we made that difficult transition to Northwest being our health, fitness, and aquatics center. And, we have actually, since COVID, we're happy to say that the new facility expanded some of our childcare services. But to make that choice so that the Y in the whole would continue. But you don't have to go too far in the community to find someone like yourself or an individual that has a memory or a recollection or a connection to that facility.
Absolutely. And I guess one of just my, just something I appreciate is that I've noticed, just as a community member, I've seen the shifts that are happening, or like the new daycare center that's in South Regina in the old, it was a co-op, is that correct?
Yeah, it was an amazing partnership. You were talking about the COVID period, and our friends at Sherwood Co-op over a cup of coffee one day, they said, well, if you're not going to be continuing with that building, what are you going to be doing about your childcare operations, your admin teams, your community development teams? And we weren't really 100% sure at that point. Yeah. And they said that they might have an opportunity for us, and through, I would say, a once-in-a-career partnership, they said, well, what about this property that's sitting at 25th and Albert in Regina, and refurbishing that into a state-of-the-art childcare, expanded childcare, our admin team. And, we were asking the question, well, we don't think we'd be in a position financially to do that. Well, what if we made that possible for you? Yeah. And they stepped forward as a partner to build out that center for us and move us in. And so now we have 170 childcare spaces, 80 that are brand new at that location, a community programming space, which is great, because then again, we can have some presence in that area of the city for our youth programs. We've got some seniors and motions programs. I talked about some of the mom and baby programs have come back recently. And just a bustling childcare center in a busy place, and in the heart of I guess we're in the South End. I'll call it the South End, but it gives us a little bit of footprint in that community, and it's really diverse in that community. We found that there's a lot of newcomers to Canada. There's a lot of seniors and residents there, and we're looking forward to building out our programming to make that a home for everybody.
Yeah, and that's a need that it's really appreciated. I know at our foundation for sure. Just seeing that. Because we've seen, I guess currently we're in a climate where like the government has drastically decreased the barrier of entry for daycares. Like I actually sit on the board of a daycare, and I remember when my kids started, and it was a pretty good price, I would say, and it was like in the $900 range. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Now it's like in the $200 range. So what we've seen from that daycare, from talking to ones that we work with through the foundation as well, is that like all of them just have astronomical wait lists. So seeing a center that's able to actually accommodate so many kids at a time where families are seeking that care more than ever is just awesome to see.
Yeah, and the National Child Care Agreement has really been, I'd say a game changer for, for all child care operators in the sector, but for the YMCA. And, from a social purpose, $10 a day where, most, if not all families are now able to afford this or be close to affording it. Now it's about availability. And
yes,
we had long wait lists, previous, and now that it's probably, you could argue that it's a lot more open to a lot more people now, that might have had financial barriers before. Yes. Now the question is going to be: is there early childhood educators and new spaces? And we're excited to be part of that solution in the community. And at that new center that we talked about, we did transition 90 from our downtown spaces, but 80 were brand new and were full. Yeah, full before we could snap our fingers, so to say.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And the wait lists, they are deep, to your point. But it's exciting that it's become more available for families. Quality licensed care is available for more and more families in the community.
Yeah, and the reality is, without that center, like you mentioned, you have the new center and the wait list is deep. Without that center, that just means the wait list is even deeper.
So, it's a little deeper, yes.
Yeah. So I think that's one perspective to look at it. I think from your organization's standpoint, it is something that can make a big difference. So there is the line, building healthier communities with the YMCA. I think we've talked about it a lot here. And like what I hear is, there's something for every stage in life. There's also something from people from every type of background. Like as you mentioned, you have, homes that help youth who are in need or facing adversities. You have resources like for someone just like me, middle down the road, who just needs a place for my kid to learn how to swim, or needs a place for me to keep physically healthy. When you look at like that huge scope of like people you serve, the ways you serve them, the different levels of challenges they might have in their own backgrounds, is there like one thing that unifies, like is there a unifying statement or one thing that unifies the direction of how your service is serving the purpose of the Y?
I think there is, and it's, the term assisted membership is maybe more our internal term, but it's low cost or no cost access to the YMCA facility. And, through our philanthropic campaigns and some traditional ones over the years, you might have heard the term Strong Kids campaigns. And the idea around strong kids of all age, if you want to look at it from that respect. And what that does is it really opens the door to anybody from any background, any economic situation, facing family adversity or social adversity or systemic issues, that there's a place for you too. And that you're supported, and it's not lesser than, it's not compromised. You're part of the whole, and it's building community and inclusion around that piece. I would say that's the one thing I ask people to take away with it, is that when you're supporting us through programs, or where you're supporting us by a donation or philanthropically, or into any of our endowment funds, you're securing that future for people to be able to participate. Yeah. And I think sometimes, like, I would go when I first started at the Y so I could learn. If I was going to speak to a group of people, I'd ask how many realized that we were a registered charity, and then, it wasn't all. But in the answer, so that's an opportunity to tell the story. Yeah. And so right now, out of all our membership at our Northwest facility, which is around 4,500 members, 14% are assisted members. And the nice part is you wouldn't know that. Yeah. These are just people in your community that are there sharing in the experience that you're sharing as well. And I think that's, the real takeaway is that piece, is that it's to open doors, is to take down barriers, to create opportunities for people to participate. Yeah. The fact that it was a charity and was helping people in the community, and like you say, building a stronger community, like I know for me personally, that was the no-brainer of like, why would I go there, for example, for a gym membership, than go to somewhere that doesn't have ties like that, where, it's like, do I want to just feed this money into the gym itself, or do I want to feed this money into my neighbors who also need some support or need the help? And I think that's like a huge selling point. I think that's probably part of why the Y, locally but also nationally, is so successful, is because
it's a really easy, low barrier way for anybody to support their community, just doing the things that they would be doing anyways.
Yeah, and if you looked at it like our competitors in the fitness space, if you want to look at them in that space for a sec, their shareholders, it's a profit. Our shareholder is a vibrant, prosperous community where everybody fits and is involved and has a chance to be their very best. And you'll see people, at sort of all points in their health journey too. And coming to the facility, and people that a lady that swims, she's 91, she lane swims, and she says, they know who I am. They give me a hand in the morning with a couple of things, but she doesn't miss. And all those things, and people build friendships and sense of community, and not saying that couldn't happen elsewhere, but I think it's different where we are.
It's ingrained,
and it's more special.
It's ingrained into the very purpose of the organization itself, so it's hard for it to not be there. It's hard for it to escape, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I want to learn a little bit more about and talk a bit from like the donor perspective of how people can give either through time, things, money, however it is, to your organization. Like I know I manage the grants over at South Sask Community Foundation, so I know that the YMCA often receives grants from our operation as well as I'm assuming from others. But when you talked about the new daycare space, you mentioned someone, I can't remember how you said it, but you said someone was like, well, what if we can make this work for you? Like what kind of a partnership was that? What are the ways that maybe they gave back or that people do give back to the YMCA in meaningful ways?
Well, around the new partnership with Sherwood Co-op, what they essentially did was they built the space out to the most modern, state-of-the-art specs, and basically over a long-term period of time, over many years, we simply pay back that capital. We're in a sense, where they're rent-free. And I don't think you're going to find many situations like that out there. So it's extraordinary because they've made a $3 million investment in that facility on behalf of the YMCA to make that possible for us to be there over time. There's traditional ways to support. You mentioned volunteering, and we have around 50 volunteers, and there'll be a variety of volunteers, whether that's through the fitness classes that you'll see there. A lot of those are volunteer driven. You'll certainly see it in the youth mentorship. The one-on-one mentorships, the group mentorships, community volunteers, community events. So volunteerism is, like most or many or all charities is critical. Plus the board of directors is 100% volunteer as well. And but you will see that there's a traditional ways to give, whether it's a one-time donation, a monthly donation, it might be an event or some particular activity you're undertaking during a period of time. But to touch on the endowment funds, I think what we heard from some people is that there's that sort of ups and downs that organizations face over the course of time, and COVID certainly made that roller coaster a little more steep at times. And there was people that wanted to ensure that when they gave a thoughtful gift, whether it was through a will or an estate or a large major gift, that they could see their generosity at work, is that it was enduring. That it's something that it's replicable, and it's not, I had someone say, I don't want something that just gets eaten up in the sort of day-to-day expenses. I want something that's going to have a long-term impact or allow the organization to diversify and expand in a way that's beneficial to the community, would meet the need where it's needed. And I really think that, those legacy gifts and endowment gifts do that because it creates some income for the organization in perpetuity. But your gift continues. Your gift becomes timeless in a sense. And I think that that's the message I want to take away, is that there's always those needs for those annual stuff and things that balancing the budget type of pieces. But to really support the vision and driving the organization forward in the future and being invested in that, an endowment is a great way to make a gift.
Absolutely. And just for the context for the audience too, when Steve talks about the endowment, so one of the reasons we're even talking today is because the YMCA actually holds an endowment or legacy fund with South Sask Community Foundation. It's one of the many ways that donors can participate. And what that legacy fund means, it's a bit different than a one-time donation. So, if you give a one-time donation to a charity, then they can use that, well, they use that donation now, generally within, a year or whatever the term is. That's a donation to use for immediate needs, which is fantastic, that's needed. The endowment or legacy piece is kind of an add-on to that. So I actually have a graphic that we can pull up. It's a different way to look when you look at the legacy piece. The example that we have is, if someone were to give $100,000 today into a legacy fund, what they can see is, a year in, what they're going to end up giving from that, based on the interest and the gains accrued to it, is going to be pretty small in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's going to be, a few $1,000s. But if you look 25 years down the road, based on our historical data, at that point you'll have actually given more than that initial donation. Then you'll get 50 years down the road, and it's like, oh, your donation is astronomical. Like, it's given it has the potential to give way more, and it's funding that a charity can rely on every single year. It's just a line item that they know that that's coming through in some way, shape, or form, for the most part.
The perpetuity of it is that's what someone said one time, it's perpetual.
Yes.
And I thought that was a really nice way to say it, is that you make that gift of significance, and then it just continues to be significant year after year after year. And, we're very appreciative and feel very fortunate that we've been awarded grants through the South Sask Community Foundation through the various grant streams for our programs. There's other community partners, as you mentioned, that partner with us as opposed to make a donation.
Yeah.
So they'll become directly involved with the program or an element of a program or a signature program that might be in the, something that we're doing in the community. So like our mentoring programs, we'll have partners that come forward with that. We're doing mental health youth mental health programming now, and a lot of different things. So there's lots of organizations that said that's something that resonates with why they want to invest in the community. Access Communications certainly being one of them.
Yeah.
As we sit here, and it's really nice to be able to know that there's people that share that vision of a healthy community, and and that healthy it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's the strength of the Y, is that we can meet you where you are around those needs. But if you look at working with youth, and in today's environment where everything seems a little faster, and social media can be a little more cruel and these type of things, it's that they know there's safe places to reach out to get help and support.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. One other thing I want to mention before we start to wrap up is the YMCA of Regina. As I mentioned, you hold what we call an agency fund with SSCF. And one of the things we did with your fund, as well as some others last year, is we partnered together with a campaign called Willpower. And it's really about trying to create a culture of people realizing that giving in their will is something that should be normalized, that is an important thing to do. And I just want to talk a little bit about, the importance of that planned giving and how it relates to the YMCA. Like, do you guys, as an organization, do you have a grasp of when someone has left maybe a gift or is planning to leave a gift in your will? Is that a strategy you guys ever directly work with?
Definitely, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of that. And a will is probably, I would suggest, is the most personal gift you'll ever make. And there's the philanthropic element of it, but there's also people that say, I don't want to leave it all for the tax and those kind of things. I don't think that's the point. It's people that something that's had a deep effect within their life, where they give something to allow that to continue at the time of their passing. And we've received some of those gifts, and one that particularly resonates with me is a gentleman had passed away, and his son had come back to Regina to talk to us and learn a little bit more about his father, and we had a conversation, and he'd made a donation in his estate. And what we were able to do to come away from that, the warm part of this for me was, they said, is there any small way that you could acknowledge my father's contribution here? And I said, well, your father was instrumental in the history of the Y. And what it allowed us to do is we're putting up a memory wall of all the memorabilia made possible through this. And we've had donations made that say, in estates that were, you helped me at a time of need. And this isn't someone who was engaged as a member at that time, as someone somewhere in their journey. That we'd been able to be of support. A bicycle stand for someone that used to ride his bike to the Y every day, things like that. And some were made initially. There was gifts made directly into one of our funds there, where people saw their generosity at work while they're still with us.
Yeah.
Which is also a really, really nice thing to be able for them to see their contribution at work. But if it's a time where you feel that there's been something at the YMCA that's really resonated with you and your family, and you can make a gift that's deeply personal.
Yeah.
We would welcome people to consider that, because those legacy gifts are exactly that.
Yeah.
They allow us to create a legacy going forward for many other people as well, too.
Yeah. And I had a meeting. His name is Dr. Tom Deans. It would have been, I guess, in 2022. He did an event with our organization, and he focuses on helping specifically like businesses and families transition wealth. And part of that is how planned giving is a part of it. And he really talked about how, it's a tough, like you're talking about death. It's a tough thing. By adding in planned giving and giving to a charity, and specifically if you're creating a legacy fund that can live on forever, is that it actually helps ease and it gives focus to the meaning that your family should take on from your life going forward. So, if someone went to the Y, for example, and that was something that's really ingrained in their family, during that hard time, it gives you something optimistic to always hold on to.
I really appreciate when you get to learn the story of, what brought people to that, and sometimes it is something that perhaps organizations, individuals are tentative in talking about because of what it is. But a friend of mine that works in financial investment, he said that money will go someplace.
Yeah.
And he said a lot of times people will talk about the fact that, well, I want to make sure there's lots left for my kids and all these things. And he said, I want to show you how you can accomplish both those things.
Yeah.
That you can, do what fulfill your wishes for your family, but also fulfill your wishes for your community.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thanks a lot. This is about all the time we have. So I just want to thank you for coming on. This was really insightful. It's incredible just the amount of work that your organization does. And I know we really appreciate it at our foundation and are happy to have just a little footprint within that as well.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk a little more about the YMCA.
Awesome. Thank you for tuning in today. If you'd like to learn more about how you can make an impact in your own community, visit the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation online at sscf.ca or search for us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, or Spotify.
If you'd like to share your feedback on the program you just watched, contact us today.